this is a super, super big time for social enterprises added into the procurement requirements coming into New South Wales. A big thank you to Dr. Sarah Quang. She's been leading the social committee in New South Wales as well as leading the procurement. The social traders team has been working for many, many years, like Alex said, and we're super pumped to see, social enterprises being mentioned in potential policies to come. So we say bring on social enterprise targets, we say bring on social enterprise certification, and we say bring on social enterprise buying. Right. I'm really excited to introduce this next session. Social procurement and supply diversity is a sector that's been rapidly growing for many years and is now operating as simply good business. Operating across many, many years, Social Traders, Supply Nation, and WeConnect have been leading the way in social procurement and exist to support social enterprises, Indigenous businesses, as well as women-owned businesses. And of course, like Tara mentioned, have recently partnered together for a 3-year MOU to grow the sector together and to enable impact in diverse suppliers. So it's just a great honour that I get to welcome back on stage Social Traders CEO, Tara Anderson, Supply Nation's Head of Supplier Services, Suzanne Grech, and WeConnect's Australian Market Lead, Cheryl Grech. Welcome to the stage.
Right, check the mics are working. Middle seat, yeah. Come on in. All right, so it's very exciting to be sitting here with both of you today. We signed this MOU back in August, I think it was, at the WeConnect International Conference. And this is the first time we've shared a stage together to have a chat about what does this actually mean in practice? What are we going to do? So that's what we want to have a discussion about today is what is it? But why us and why now? And what are we going to do next? So I mentioned before, we are going to have an opportunity to throw to you for you to share your ideas with us. We want to hear from you. What would you like us to be doing together? So there'll be a QR code put up in a little bit where you can input into that. But in the meantime, we will have a bit of a chat about what we see as the opportunities. But before we do that, it's a huge pleasure to be with two incredible women here, Suzanne and Cheryl. So I'd love you to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what each of your organisations do. And I'll kick off in this direction.
Me first. Yama everyone. My name is Suzanne Grech. I'm a Gamilaroi Wanneroo woman from a little place called Coonabarabran. Some of you may know there's usually 3 degrees of separation. I am the head of the supply services team at Supply Nation. We specifically work within the supplier diversity space with a focus on Indigenous businesses in the sector. We celebrated our 15 years this year, and what we do a whole range of different things. But the key areas are our verification process and our IBD. We have more than a little over 5,000 suppliers on our directory. We have a wonderful member services team, which are our counterparts, and they have more than 850 members in their team. And we work to be able to, build opportunity, but also, be advocates for Indigenous businesses in the space.
Good morning, everyone. The brief for us today was that we were going to have a casual conversation in front of 350 people, but I didn't know we were going to be in Harry Potter world when we were invited to come. So it's really great to be here. My name is Cheryl Grech. I'm the Australian market lead for WeConnect International. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and acknowledge my Quandamooka ancestors and thank them for guiding us here. WeConnect International, for those of you who may not be familiar, our primary purpose is to drive more money into the hands of women business owners. And a bit like, I love Tara's introduction today, ultimately we want to put ourselves out of a job. But the stats at the moment don't allow that to happen. WeConnect International operate in 135 countries around the globe. And we face the situation where women make 70% of the purchasing decisions, represent more than 30% of the businesses, but only receive 1% of the corporate and government spend. Now, fundamentally, that's not right. And that's women across many sectors. So ultimately, WeConnect is about connecting women business owners and buyers to get a bigger slice of that pie.
Thank you both. So to kick us off, as Cheryl said, let's have a casual chat in front of 300 people about why us and why now for this partnership. And some of my thoughts about that, and the reason that we're excited about this at Social Traders, is that these are collectively, we're the 3 industry bodies for supplier diversity nationally in Australia that have been leading this work. So the sectors, it's reached a point where it's maturing, it's matured a lot and it's matured quickly. We saw from some of those Social Traders stats and also what was just shared that there's been huge growth. And so the question now is really, what's next? So we've done a lot of the work about why should we do this? Now the question is, how do we supercharge this work? How do we take it to the next level? And what does that look like? And we can only do that together. At Social Traders, we have a value of collaborative connectors. We know that we have to work with others. When we do that, all boats rise. It's a mosaic. We all have a piece and we need the pieces around us to play their part too. So we're really excited to join up the work. And in particular, just acknowledging the respect that we have for these 2 organisations that have been doing this work for many, many years and are not doing it for commercial reasons, importantly. You share the same vision and mission as Social Traders does of a fairer and more equitable Australia and world in the case of WeConnect. And that matters. The intentionality behind why you're doing this work is really important to us because that aligns with the same reason for being that Social Traders has. But Cheryl, what does it mean for you? What do you see as why us and why now?
I think why now? I think Alex indicated some of the reasons why now, and part of it is around expectations. I mean, as 3 organisations, we've been working in the same pool, so to speak, for a long time now. We've had these discussions over a long period of time, but I think the speed and the expectation of the community around working together for a common good is the biggest push. And I think it's also fair to say that, you know, we have to be alert to market forces as well. We do represent that sense of purpose and good, but we also represent an area of opportunity. And where there's opportunity, there are others who will come in and play in the pond. These 3 organisations have history, credibility and reliability, which I think is particularly important on the buyer side. And I think those are the values that we need to work together to uphold, to ensure that what we do continues to maintain that level of credibility and reliability that all of our members expect. Otherwise, we begin to erode the very foundations on which our organisations were built. So I think that's why now and why us. Suzanne?
Yeah, I think what I think is the time is now, right? So our 3 organisations have worked pretty much uphill for quite some time in silos and as individual organisations in this sector, but ultimately we are working for the same people and the same pool of people. And what we've seen with that pool of people is the capacity and the capability, the growth, the prosperity, the continuity, the motivation, you know, all these is significant. And so it's getting bigger and it's getting stronger. And so for us, because we have very individualized sectors that we look after, together, we're louder, we can advocate harder, We can push things in stronger. I mean, earlier, just before we were sitting at this table, before we got up, before the conference started, and we were already talking about who's next on our hit list. So I
Long
think
list.
it is a long list. But I think the thing for all of us is that we've spent so much time building really strong frameworks as individual organisations that now is the time to progress forward as a sector, as three really strong organisations within the supplier diversity space that have clear visions, that have clear goals together, so that we can actually be stronger and bigger.
Yeah, beautifully said. So one of the first things that we did to figure out what exactly are the opportunities for us to work together is we mapped the data that we have to have a look at our suppliers and our business and government members. So for anyone that would like to play bingo on how much overlap there is, which is what the social traders team enjoyed doing over the last little while, now's your moment. But I will share what that mapping looked like. So this is diverse suppliers. So at the top, we have the social enterprises certified by social traders. In the red circle, we have the Indigenous businesses certified and registered with Supply Nation. And in the lighter blue circle, we have the women-owned businesses certified and registered with WeConnect. So as you can see, there is not a lot of overlap here. There is one business that has all three of those certifications and a small handful that have a couple. Now, of course, that means not all businesses will be able to have all three certifications. It's the whole point of certification. You need to be a genuine Indigenous business or women-owned or social enterprise. But there will be many more that do overlap that just haven't taken up that opportunity yet. So that's the diverse supplier side. And then on the business side, last chance for any guesses of the number of overlap where members that have all three. Anyone want to have a guess? 80 or 2. Okay, there's optimism and pessimism in the room. That's a good thing. We need all of it. I was unsurprisingly, the optimist in this conversation at Social Traders compared to the rest of my team anyway. But the answer is 10. There are 10 business and government members that hold memberships of all three of our organisations. Quite a lot comparatively of overlap in Supply Nation members and Social Traders members, and less overlap with WeConnect members. So again, this says everything about the opportunity that's ahead of us, particularly on this side of the market with business and government members that are doing very similar activity, but just with different supplier bases. So the opportunity to join that up is pretty significant. So that's what we want to talk about next, is what do we see as those next opportunities? And as we're doing that, tell us what you think. So this is that QR code. It just takes you to a form to input a suggestion, if you have one, for what you would like to see us doing together, bearing in mind that the opportunity here is pretty enormous, given that there's not a lot of overlap at the moment with our members and suppliers. So while you're thinking about that, Cheryl, tell us a bit about what you see.
Well, I want to comment on the diagram first, because when we signed the MOU in August, the end of August, at our Asia Pacific conference in Brisbane, the room was buzzing with, and what does this mean? And what happens next? There's massive expectations. We're okay with that, on our three organisations to do something positive and significant. And I think it's 2 Venn diagrams, but it's actually really significant. It's the first time that the 3 organisations have worked together and actually mapped our data to actually create a baseline to understand where that intersection is and where that opportunity is. So from that, only good things can come. We can now identify who and where that overlap is and working together. So what's next? I mean, obviously the increase in the access to opportunities by simply sharing information. Our 3 organisations have been talking regularly since we signed that MOU. Did we do that before? Not formally, not very often. We absolutely work in the same space. We go to the same conferences, but now we're actually talking about working together and doing things together. So the access to those opportunities for us as organisations, but more importantly, our members, is really important. Stronger support systems. I sit here as the sole representative of WeConnect in this country, apart from our single certifier who works in Melbourne. So I'm sure you're not surprised why our numbers here are so low. So what I'm looking forward to is the help of my buddies over here so that we can actually work together. So what we've got in terms of global strengths and best practices and opportunities, we can share with social traders and Supply Nation, and equally they can share support, knowledge and resources with WeConnect International, which only benefits all of those members, particularly those ones who are already in the crossover zone, but the others as well. And I think Tara and Alex have already said it. It's the opportunity to amplify our advocacy at local, state, federal and international levels, where we can actually raise all of the issues around procurement and social procurement and move that needle forward for everyone.
What about you, Suzanne?
Yeah, I think my initial thoughts on the data, on the mapping exercise was surprise. It actually was not where I thought it most probably was going to be. I thought we'd have a little bit more of crossover in both demographics, both members and suppliers. But the one thing that I think that I take away and our organisation will take away is that there is so much opportunity in that. So even though the numbers are low, there is so much work that we can do together. And I think that's the exciting piece. We're taking this pretty seriously. So all three organisations have, have had the serious conversations, have really put the work in behind the MOU to identify exactly how we want to create change moving forward and what we want to be doing for all of our buyers and our suppliers. And I think there's plenty of work to be done. On the buyers graph, I just wanted to say that graph to me showcased that there is plenty of appetite in the sector for supply diversity across the whole nation. So, yes, there is work to be done, but there is definitely a lot of appetite. In the supplier graph, what I call out from that is more around, we now have a job to introduce all of our suppliers to each other and to get the cohorts going, to get the communities going and to get the networking going and to get the groups growing. Because as we know, supplier diversity is built for the people by the people. And so with all of our people built together, then, that first graph, I'm not worried about that. I think we'll go a long way with that one.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the advocacy point's a really important one. So Alex mentioned some of the work that we've been doing, but as Suzanne said, to be able to be stronger and louder together is really important. So the conversation we were having just on our table before this was talking about the Queensland Olympics, who are thinking about social procurement right now, a lot of interest and also a lot of questions about what that might actually mean and how to do it. So it's a perfect example of, instead of us having 3 different conversations with the same government, we go in and have one conversation. So instead of them hearing it from 3 different perspectives, which sounds messy and sounds hard and it's not exactly clear, and it wasn't even clear to us what the overlap was until we just did this mapping, we can now go in and really clearly say, this is how you do supplier diversity as a category in its own right, full stop, with all the different types of suppliers built into that work. So it makes it much easier for them to engage with, and also makes the conversation much clearer. So it's a longer and a louder and stronger voice that we can have, which is really quite cool. And we have our first opportunity, or our second one, on a panel together with the federal government coming up in a couple of weeks in Canberra, where they invited all of us to speak to a whole lot of their procurement people in the federal government at their procurement conference. So these are the kind of opportunities now where we can have that one voice that's stronger and louder when we say things together. But specifically around buyer members and suppliers, Suzanne, what do you see as the opportunities for buyers from this partnership?
I think coming together and forging that whole relationship going forward is definitely going to streamline the access to our suppliers in all of our pools. So, I know that we've all experienced, the conversation when we go in and you sit at the table and you're talking to the stakeholder and he's like, yeah, well, we do this over here and we do this over there and we do this over there. Why should we do this with you as well? Here, we're not taking an individual approach to the buyer. Here, we're taking a collaborated approach to the buyer, so that we take one pool of supplier diversity talent to the table, and then we all get to advocate for each other whilst we're there. So I think from a buyer perspective, from a procurement perspective, what we're doing by coming together is we're forging that way forward to make it easier for our buyers to buy from the supply diversity sector. That would be my biggest thing for buyers.
Yeah, great. And what about the supplier side, Cheryl, specifically? What do you see as some of the opportunities from this partnership there, building on what you've already mentioned?
Yeah, look, I know we've all heard from both buyers and suppliers about some of the inefficiencies, I suppose, in the way that we work, because we have these sort of artificial barriers in some ways that have existed in the past between us. Obviously from buyers' perspective, why should we be members of 3 organisations? And yes, we're not there yet, but we're working, we're trying. And from the supplier side, the opportunity and the amount of time and money that suppliers have to spend to reach out, even through our organisations, to reach out to buyers, to make those contacts and to try to establish those relationships is expensive and time consuming, and it's a bit of a scattergun at times. If we work together more closely, we can actually increase the rate of success for all of those suppliers, simply because they've now got 3 voices who are able to put them forward and advocate. And what does that mean at a really practical level? So if I get someone who rings and says, I'm looking for someone who's an expert in the provision of X, and I don't have anyone in my network, previously, that's it, conversation over. Now, I can pick up the phone or talk together or already have information where I can say, well, we don't have any certified women-owned businesses, but I know Social Traders or Supply Nation have someone. Speak to this person, here you go. So what do we have? We have a happy buyer and we have more happy suppliers. And that's what's going to continue. That will just continue to grow. What we lack at the moment is volume. We need more. We need more suppliers. We need more buyers. So automatically we've taken a huge step in that direction. And I think that's going to grow. And I really think that's where the opportunities will be for both sides of the equation.
Sorry. Can I and just to add to that as well, in that buyer space, is that between all 3 of us, the data, the analytics, and the reason for why they should do it becomes a whole lot stronger, because we have different demographics of data, different, like you were talking about, the added value piece within the within the supply diversity space. Together, we can share that with our buyers in a different way that has never been shared before. So together, we can show the real true value of what being a supply diversity supplier is in the sector. And together, we can show the buyer the actual data to support that.
Yeah, fantastic. And we'll just wrap up with some closing thoughts. And one from me is that I would encourage everyone in the room to share the spirit of collaboration that we are working towards. So it's one thing for the 3 of us to come together and look at how we can join up our work and join up the support that we offer for buyers and suppliers. But we need all of the buyer and supplier community to be doing the same thing. We need all of you to be with us, speaking as one about supplier diversity and about your peers, whether they are social enterprise peers or women-owned businesses or Indigenous-owned businesses. We need that conversation to be consistent. When we speak in one voice, it's much stronger than when we're, blinding people with lots of different flashing lights. We can convert that into one spotlight, and that's really powerful. So it's an invitation to everyone to to join us in having a more consistent and stronger conversation about the future of supplier diversity. Suzanne, any?
I would say we've talked a lot about how we've put our minds behind what we think is needed in this space and within this MOU. I think now is the perfect time to hear from all of you. We're saying we're sitting on this stage today saying we are going to advocate for all of us together moving forward from here on in, but we need your voice. Use your voice. My biggest takeaway for today would be use your voice, not just to meet the people in the room today and make the connections, but use your voice to be able to contribute to what this journey is going to look like for the benefit of yourselves and your futures.
I think we're in violent agreement with each other. So, but I don't want to overlook the challenges that we all face. The supplier diversity space, yes, it's growing. Yes, there's interest, but there are still so many hurdles that we need to address. The beauty of this arrangement is we've agreed on an ask first policy. When we talked about the sort of values and principles that we would operate under, and it was agreed that we would adopt an ask first. So that means, if we are challenged by something outside the agreement, that we would ask each other first. And I think that displays a level of maturity and trust that our three organisations perhaps haven't displayed well before, and I think that's a really significant factor in being able to move forward. So I guess I'd like to congratulate obviously Tara and Kate through you, Suzanne, in terms of the leadership, and obviously from WeConnect side, Elizabeth Vasquez, who's our global CEO, for actually sitting down and putting pen to paper and really committing to the trust in each other and the trust in you as buyers and suppliers to be able to really make meaningful and long-lasting change.
Brilliant. Thank you both so much. A really heartfelt thank you. And it was one of your colleagues, Suzanne, who said in our very first meeting, when we all got together, and there was probably about 10 or 12 of us on that call, that said, "This is such a joyful meeting." And that's what we want this work to be, and we hope that you feel that and can engage in that as well. Thank you both. Right.